Right, I'll be with you in just 1 second. There. That's the one. Welcome everybody. We are back online. Oh, we will be if I turn the light on. Hey Luna, thanks for joining. Just getting set up here. I have a whole lot of to-do things, which are all going to be interesting. Today's the day, and we're logged in. All right, let's recap. This is a Teletype Model 33 automatic send receive ASR, and that means that it has a manual send and receive where you can send from the keyboard and oh, that didn't work, and receive from whatever you're connected to, in this case a Raspberry Pi. But it's also automatic send and receive, so I can receive on punchtape, which is just not plugged into the punch right now, and I can also send on punchtape. If I have some punched tape, then I can send it out to the computer. We're not going to use that much today, but we'll see. So this dates from about 1960s, late 60s, and it's a computer terminal. Let's have a look. So this is the to-do list. I think I'll do it in a slightly different order. And yeah, I'll post these links after, just in case they're useful. Actually, let me see if I can post them as we go. I think I'll be able to do that. I'm trying to figure things out here still. So that's my to-do list. I want to take the lid off. I need to take the lid off because there's some maintenance work that I need to schedule, and for that I have a little light oil that I'm going to put on some key pieces of the mechanism, and to get at the mechanism we need to get the lid off. So that's all really exciting, because then it means you see the machinery, and we'll actually, I think we can run it with the lid off, as long as I don't put my fingers in the dangerous places. Super exciting. And then I want to talk about Getty and the login, and I have a goal to make Getty non-automatic, because right now it automatically logs in, and so I'll change that so that I actually have to log in with a password. So this is kind of what's the thing that are closest to the hardware, right? Because the closest to the hardware is like the pieces of software that actually connect you directly into the rest of the system. Like when the computer finds that it has a terminal connected to one of its ports, then somehow it has to present you with a login prompt. And that's the role of Getty. Getty sits and listens on a port and says, I'm going to get a TTY on this port. And when I do, let's figure out how to talk to it, what speed the line is running at, and all of that stuff. And then ask them to log in by getting a login prompt. And so the Getty is run through kind of init, or whatever init passes for these days. Yeah, so then login obviously needs to run with root so that it can actually turn you into a real user. And let's see how that goes. So Erasmus, hi. I remember the football scores coming in on one of these on the BBC in the 70s and the 80s. I think they did. I have exactly the same memory of like watching the footy and the results coming in on a Saturday afternoon. And you had this little view. I'm not sure that it was exactly this type of machine. I think it was maybe a little different model of a teleprinter, but it was exactly the same process. These obviously are designed for interactive, so you've got a keyboard and you've got a printer, and they're kind of intended for that interactive computer terminal kind of thing. They did make versions of this called read-only that were the same thing without a keyboard, and they also had the KSR, the keyboard send receive, which was the version of this without the tape punch and without the tape printer. If you didn't want like mass storage, then KSR was what you needed. So yeah, Getty and the login and Getty, and then the other thing that is like really close to the hardware. Hey, XOR hash, awesome. You must be in a different time zone than me. This is good to see you here. Yeah, so the things that are closest to the hardware are a little bit mysterious because nobody needs to deal with them anymore. In a modern system, you don't notice the Getty. In fact, you never have a Getty, typically, unless you have a serial console. STTY kind of handles itself. But I'll dig into those a little bit and see what they're like. So let's see. Yeah, on the Getty. So somewhere on the GitHub for this thing, there is a there's a directory called rpi, which has some files that talk about. Oh, it's only that one. Oh no. Nope. No such file. README is uppercase, and so I can't just like type the name of it. I could do. I can use the globbing to get it. But yeah. So let's go in here with the editor. I don't want to print out 65 lines of stuff. It'll take a little while. So I think I can just go in here with the editor. Yeah, okay. And then I can search for where it talks about Getty. And from here to let's print the next 20 lines. And see what it says. This will remind me how the Getty works. So this is Raspberry Pi, the machine that we're connected to, and it uses systemd to log in. And there's a Getty service that is running the Getty. So, let's try that. Isn't there a term cap thing for uppercase unknown terminals? Something in the recesses of your mind seems to think so. Yeah, there is. Actually, there's some history on this, which is kind of funny. When I first put this machine together, I wanted to connect it to my Mac, because I didn't remember that I had another Unix supercomputer in the basement in a box. So I connected it to my Mac, and if you're on the Mac, then I looked at STTY, thinking, okay, well, Let me get a new window on here. I'm in Mac OS. Come on. Or at least I will be once it connects me. I think my CPU is burning because of OBS, so bear with me on that front. In STTY here, there ought to be a thing that lets you change uppercase to lowercase, and I couldn't find it. And I couldn't find it because on Mac OS, the version of like no, it doesn't exist. Right? STTY L case doesn't exist. And so this is on the Mac though, right? So the first machine that I put this thing together, built a current loop to USB converter so that I could actually plug it into a machine, plugged it into the Mac, and like they've removed the lowercase option from the BSD based Mac OS, because who would want to connect a Teletype to a Mac, right? To your MacBook or your Mac Mini or whatever, right? Nobody wants to do that, do they? Well, I do, sorry. So it didn't work. So anyway, then I built a little bit of firmware. So there's the electronics on this. Yeah, they completely obsoleted it. It's like, to remove the surface area for experimentation or something. There's a bit of electronics between this and the like whatever host it's connected to anyway, and the electronics is a teensy microcontroller that's running a little bit of Arduino code, and I had to do that anyway because I needed a USB interface, and I have a bunch of teensy boards sitting in the basement for exactly this kind of project. And so I wrote a little bit of Arduino code there to translate uppercase to lowercase so that I could plug it into the Mac. And that stuff is still running, and so now I don't really need to do the STTY uppercase thing. But if I'm... so this is... Oops. Getting the right window is... So this is on my Mac OS machine. But here... I'm on the... X window system is not... X window system is not... oh no, X just won't be accessible. I wonder what happens on a name collision with two files. Yeah. I don't know, because I try to steer away from that problem. I've had that problem in real life with like Git, completely separate from this thing, and it's just like a pain. So yeah, let's have a look on here. Here, if I can find the window again, STTY L case, and now, with any luck, yeah, everything's uppercase. And so STTY L case, this is on Debian Raspbian Stretch. So luckily on Debian, all of these old options are still there, and so we can actually dispense with the uppercase lowercase thing. There should also be a magical like escape characters so that they turn into lowercase kind of a thing, but I couldn't get it working. And oh yeah, that's the other thing about when you do uppercase lowercase, it messes up all sorts of things on my terminal. Like even the man page doesn't work anymore. But there is a thing about escaping. Yeah, there we are. X case that says with iCanon escape with a / for uppercase characters. And so what's iCanon? Well, iCanon is something about canonical mode, I think. And yeah, so STTY X case, and I don't see any slashes, right? And if I say ls license, no, it doesn't exist. ls, that kind of worked, but if I do /l, I mean, I don't think that escaping thing is working. Let's have a look at the STTY settings. I have xcase and iCanon. And so that escape thing should do something. I looked in for the source and I couldn't find it. And so actually the source is up on the show notes thing here on the to-do. STTY is in core utils, and so you can just go to GitHub and take a look at it. But really, all that STTY does is just set these options. It's just the command line kind of UI to read and write options. It doesn't implement them. To implement them, you've got to go to the TTY driver, which is down in the kernel. And there's too much of that for me to understand right now. So I read some of it, and it's like, oh yeah, this is complicated. It does everything, right? So XOR hash, side note, I tried STTY lcase on OpenBSD and apparently had no effect, although it's documented. So yeah, definitely I think this is worth hunting down. And actually I think in the near future what I want to go is turn off that option on my Arduino firmware, so that I'm passing through uppercase from this and like make it work. But I may have to do some reading of the source code to find out how to make it work. Yeah. So it's funny kind of piecing this stuff together and not being an expert on it. I think there's kind of this division between like TermIOS and STTY deal with real low level terminal stuff, things that are appropriate for a Teletype terminal because they date back quite a way. And then the higher level stuff where we have like the term and all of the escape sequences for terminals, those are in like term caps and the sput utility and all of that stuff. So they're in the term info database. And those two things are really kind of overlapping, but I think there's this historical shift between like the kernel handles a teletype and then all of this term cap stuff is more like user mode things that handle visual terminals. And visual terminals needed like escape sequences because there was this like Cambrian explosion of different terminal capabilities in the mid-70s when like suddenly they could go up and down, they could do bold, they could do different fonts, they could backspace, they could do all this stuff, and eventually that settled down around the DEC kind of VT 220 and so on, and then Xterm these days is like, hey, that's all the set of characters you need to, or escape sequences you need to handle. But things like converting from uppercase to lowercase are hidden in the kernel, whereas things like turning on word wrap are up in the userland terminal database, which is kind of weird. I think it's just like one of these historical accidents. So yeah, here's the Getty thing. It says there's a system CTL that says I can turn this on and off. Sudo system CTL show Getty at da da da. I think I'm just gonna no Erasmus, you have it all wrong. This is the best terminal ever. Who needs anything that's more sophisticated than this? Yeah, it's funny. I am a sucker for those visual terminals, but I love the mechanicalness of this one. It's like it's a joy. So let's see about this sudo. Oh, there's all sorts of stuff in here. Wow. If I look at this Getty service. So yeah, let's go on to the Getty in a second. I could read your chat. You're running away with me. It's hyena historically grown. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Somebody, and I forget their name, on Twitter just like an hour ago, posted some screenshots of the resurrected Unix v0, and it's extraordinary. So these are basically kind of, somebody had printouts of the source code from the original PDP-7 Unix, and the original Unix written by Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson on the PDP-7. That was you, Leaking Caps. Well, fantastic. Yeah, thanks for joining here. This is extraordinary. I mean, I looked up the screenshots, and there's like these original listings that then got basically hand transcribed back into a PDP-7 emulator and a real PDP-7 that somebody has running. And now anybody can run it. It's extraordinary. So in theory, my Raspberry Pi, that's the host for this thing, would be able to run Unix v0, and I so want to do that. I'm not going to do it today, but that's magic. That's real magic. The next best thing to having an actual PDP-7. Oh yeah, the other historical artifact I've been looking at is the CDC 6500 living computers in Seattle, and that thing is liquid cooled. It's like Seymour Cray built a supercomputer in 1967, and it runs like faster than anything in the world at the time, and it has like 3 liquid cooled compressors to run Freon, and 64k words of RAM, of core. Anyway. So, wait, V7 already has configurable erase and interrupt, and what do you need for the interrupt? Yeah, I mean, I haven't even learned what to do with, yeah, I don't build the kernel here, or at least so far I've avoided like hacking on the kernel. But also backspace here, it's like you can do a backspace and it'll print like Control H, but there's no backspace key, and of course it doesn't have physically a backspace mechanism. I'd like it to actually do a backspace at some point, so I kind of have implemented that in the Arduino code, so that there's an escape sequence that you can say kind of go back 1 character, and it'll hit carriage return and then space up to where it used to be, and then you're in your old position again. So VCF Pacific Northwest, yes. I'm hoping to get down to VCF East in New Jersey, because Ken Thompson's going to be talking there, and it's the 50th anniversary of Unix, and I hope I'll be able to take a drive down to New Jersey. I'm around Boston here, so it's not too far. And I am not going to bring my Teletype, though. I'm just going to bring the family. So yeah, let's do some Getty. That Getty service, I logged on here, and it turns out, yeah, there's all sorts of like parameters to the Getty, and the path is sbin a Getty, and so it turns out actually my link here is pretty much right. You can go look up the source for a Getty, and it's quite readable. And all that a Getty does really is just like, let's look at the port. Let's wait until we see a terminal that looks like we can connect to. Figure out the baud rate that we're going to talk to it if it's serial, assuming that it's like a serial port. Negotiate that kind of connection speed, and then once you have somebody that looks like a terminal's connected, then present a login prompt, or magically auto login. So this is set to auto login, and from here to let's print the next 10 lines of this. So I've set up auto login. I want to go edit it just so that we see what the actual login prompt looks like, because having a real login prompt is kind of nice. That path, well, yeah, we'll see. So if I remember correctly, ended up still using pound sign as erase. Blah, blah. 50th anniversary of Unix is disputed. Haha, yeah, right. Well, yes. There's lots of tangled history, and it's funny the way that things worked out, because there was such a Unix war, and now there's not a Unix war so much anymore. I mean, I've used some of the other variants at work, and now Linux is everywhere. So yeah, I still call hey, this is Unix. It's not AIX, but it's totally still Unix. If I'm not politically correct there, then that's just not my battle. Anyway, I think it's fantastic. I think it's absolutely wonderful. So anyway, on the auto login for Getty, I'm going to create a file, and then there's some contents of it, and let's go see if we can find that. So it's going to be. I'll be root to do this. ASCII systemd. Yep. Seriously? That's not gonna work. Why did it bing at me? Oh, that reminds me. I'm gonna get out of being root for a start. Right, let's be TwitchBot. Turn the TwitchBot on so that you can ring the bell and all of that stuff. There's v7 Unix in FreeBSD and OpenBSD in their disk3 and all of that. Yeah. No, I think maybe there's Control I didn't work. Let's be root. Systemd. System. Yes. Getty. Getty at. Where's my at sign? Yes. Oh no, there's two of them. Oh no. Oh no. CD, ASCII, systemd, system. Okay. What Gettys do I have on here and why? Oh. Oh yeah, I have London. Yeah. And I'm gonna get this whole long listing because there's probably a ton of stuff in there. So. Well, yeah. So, rather than try to CD into, directories that I can't spell because my uppercase is not working, I cheated. So here's a nice little link, and go. Right. So this is the yeah. Oh. I'm still not used to ED opening me in the end of the file. So here's that exec start line, the second line that says auto login, and let's make sure I'm on the right line again. I'm just going to take out and I'm still using my TTY33 AMX term cap because it has my special escape sequences, but we're not really using those. So I'm not automatically logging, and I'm going to log out of here, and I'm going to log out of the system. Yep. Let's wait for this. Luna says, I should find the baptism for adding the last argument to the last command to the current command, yeah. And my bash skills too are primitive. I think I spent longer on corn shell than on bash, even now, but I've switched my default shell to bash again, so anyway. I logged out, and it's automatically logging me in. Why? Oh, because I need to restart the the Getty service. So I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually shut down the whole machine, because again I can't type the name of the service. And yeah, if in doubt, reboot the computer. Start the host again. If I really messed it up, I'm going to be without a terminal, and then we'll see how that goes. But I hope I didn't really mess it up. It doesn't look like it. This is an ancient Raspberry Pi, so it takes a while to reboot. And when it does, I should be presented with a login prompt. That's what I'm hoping. I'm not joking about being ancient. It's really, really ancient. And I'm going to replace it. Today's the day. Yes, I can log in. Oh no, something broke there. Login incorrect. Oh, now it prints the host name. Oh, that's funny. So my automatic Getty doesn't print the host name. I have no host name on there, but now it's telling me the host name. Oh well. But this is my username. My password is secret, I hope. Let's see. Is it really? Yes, I am. I'm logged in. Yay! So that's much more normal login prompt. And it's done by the Getty. And the Getty just waits around. And actually, if we look at... how do I see what my device is? Yeah, okay, there we are. And so my STTY is actually all messed up. I really didn't want to be UTF-8. It's, yeah. My threat modeling made me realize that's not too big of an issue. If you come to my house, then you can log into my machine. It's okay. So anyway, yeah, the STTY thinks it's talking 9600 baud, and it's actually talking UTF-8, which it really shouldn't. But I don't care too much about fixing that right now. Having UTF-8 is kind of handy anyway, because then I can print emojis and things like punching emoji symbols onto the punch tape is kind of fun. So enough of that. We're half hour into the the session. I think it is time to unplug and do some maintenance, and then plug back in again and like see what it's like with the lid off. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn it off down here. Up on here you can see I have the one of the 4 manuals that came with it, which is the Technical Bulletin 310B Volume 1, and Volume 1 has a description of the basic circuitry and machinery in quite a lot of detail. And then somewhere down here it has bits of the paper that fall out. It has lubrication instructions for the machine, and there's like lots of them. There's at least 25 pages of instructions on how to oil the machine. And then 310 Bulletin Part Volume 2 is adjustments, is how to keep the machine in tip-top condition, and it's even thicker than this one. So this stuff is extraordinary. So yeah, why is it 9600 board? Yeah, that's a pretty good question. I think I can actually set it to any baud rate I like. The physical interface is USB, and the USB is done by a Cortex M4 what's it called? Chip processor, and there's some really nice hardware UARTs in that Kinetis M4 chip, but it's clocked at like 5 megahertz or something, and that means you cannot have the hardware go down to 110 baud. It just won't go that far. It'll go down to 9600. You can kind of you can divide the clock kind of however many times to get down into the kind of maybe the 1200 baud range, but you can't get to 110. It just won't do it. So on the USB side, it's talking at a much faster baud rate. There's a little bit of buffer in the teensy chip, and then on the terminal side, on the current loop, it is talking 110 baud, but it's using a software serial driver instead of the hardware, because the hardware is too fast. It's literally too fast. So I'm going to unplug this at the power. Boom. All right, so this is physically off now. Let's wind this forward. Take the listing away, take the paper away. So this needs to be oiled every maybe 100 hours or something, and so it's a little, it's due for an oiling. So I'm going to show you the process of doing that, because this is where it smells great and it sounds great and it's very tactile. So let's pull the platen knob off, because otherwise that gets in the way. This will all come off as a piece. There's a little catch in here somewhere. The first piece to come off actually is here, is on the front. Oh no, let's take the paper carrier out. And okay, this is going to be an adventure. But that's what we're doing for it. Let's move the main cam. See if I can get this to behave. Now, here's the machine, right? So from the front, there is a power switch that says off, and line and local. Line means it's connected on the line. Local means that it's connected just to itself on a loopback, and it has this beautiful Teletype lettering. But this front panel is actually a remade thing, so that's why it looks so nice. They're quite scarce, the originals. So this knob pulls off, and then the panel, with any luck, the panel unclips somewhere. There it is. So the panel unclips. And then you see there's some fixing screws that hold the lid on. And I need to go fetch a screwdriver because I forgot to have one handy. Then down in back, I think you can see there, that is the serial port adapter made of a piece of hunk of very ugly electronics and a Raspberry Pi. And so that's the supercomputer that this thing is connected to. And in back of this here, we have 3 little knurled knobs that hold the back of the case together. So I can take those out, put them away safely where they're not going to drop. And we have the beginnings of a deconstructed Teletype for its servicing appointment. Let's zoom back in while I fetch a screwdriver. I hope I have a screwdriver. Let's see. Well, I don't have a Phillips screwdriver, I just have a regular one, but I'm going to use this to take these screws off of the front here. Now, given how frequently it needs oiling, I'm surprised you need to do non-trivial work to get access to the parts that need oiling. Yeah, it needs oiling every few weeks. I mean, I think the mechanism is pretty robust, actually, considering that it's got 1 million pieces and it's quite sensitive. I mean, I've had this in the back of my car and driven a few hundred miles with it, and I didn't adjust it after I got it home, and it was just fine. So, I mean, generally it is fairly robust. If you put lots of oil in it, then, which is my goal today, then it's gonna stay like functional for a while. So that is my entire hope. I'm going to spring these things off of here without dropping the springs, because there's the lid. And now I've taken this thing off. This will catch. I better take the spool of paper away as well. And yeah, it works. Okay. Now, that is a machine. That is a real machine. What next? One more thing. I mean, it's really fun having this machine with the lid off, but it's even more fun once you start turning it back on. With the lid off. And I am totally going to support having that happen, because then you see the machinery in action. So, very gingerly, I'll plug this thing back in. Is it online? I can't tell. It's not, so let's turn it. Well, let's plug it in first. And then turn it on. And see what we can see. So inside, behind here, you can see this is the kind of idle mode. We're online, but there's nothing really happening. And the motor is running there's the motor, and it's running the machinery. It's turning the main drive shaft. But the main drive shaft has some clutches that are not engaged, so nothing's really happening. And then it starts to really move. Oh, I need to log in. So now you can see the actual action with each character. When I say log in, I'm pressing on the key. Let's focus on the side of the keyboard. There's a set of contacts. It looks like there's a lot. There's actually just 8. And when I hit a key, it moves the contacts into position. So that's letter S. And there's my password. And it sends this parallel electric signal down a piece of wire past all the power supply. This is just this is actually the power supply for the tape reader, and then this is the power supply for the motor, and this little piece of electronics on the side is a little amplifier to drive the coils that print. But it goes down to the back and out down the serial line. It actually passes through a distributor. So you see the black plastic whirligig thing? When I hit a character, the black plastic whirligig spins around and it reads the 8 bits off of the serial input, off of the keyboard, sorry, off the parallel input. It reads these 8 bits just by spinning around, and then the clutch unlatches again, and it sends them serially down the wire. So that's the parallel to serial converter for the keyboard, and it sends them out down the wire to the computer. Then when you get a signal back in again, there's a similar kind of a process, but it's done with some cams, and the cams are all down in the back here, and you can see these things spin around. And so these latch the signal onto the various solenoids at the right time, and of course it's much too fast to really see what's going on there, but that is the machinery. Then at the side here there's kind of a timing adjustment thing, where you can adjust how early and late in the cycle those bits are read off the serial into the parallel. Then the physical drive goes through these 8 parallel bars, one for each bit, that are lifted with the solenoids, and those parallel bars lift the print mechanism. So again, if I print something, you can see the bars get lifted, and when the bars lift, they move the print head and bash it against the paper. And it is surprisingly involved. It's like ridiculously involved, and it's quite amazing that it all works. And then you have the tape punch. Tape punch is really simple. It takes 8 bars, and it runs a set of punches that go through that push through the tape, and they're the punch pins, and they punch through the tape. And then the paper tape reader has some high voltage electronics, and I think it uses like a physical wire contact to see whether there's a hole in the paper or not when it comes through this, when it comes through these little sockets. My tape reader physically is working, but I have some firmware issues, and so I'm going to deal with my firmware issues at some point. So don't call me late for dinner. Yeah, imagine designing it. Oh, let's see if there's a date code on this thing. There is not a date code, but there is there's an ID plate for the keyboard. The keyboard and the print mechanism actually have different histories. They're slightly separate. They were assembled from 2 different pieces. And I think the power supply unit, again, is assembled from a 3rd machine. So this is actually kind of 3 machines all plugged together. But that ID plate on the keyboard is attached it's riveted onto the keyboard. There is an ID plate on the back of this that I won't be able to reach. Alright, now, how am I going to do my maintenance? I'm not going to leave it on. I'm going to turn it off before I do any kind of a maintenance on this. And the yeah, let me talk about that while I do some oiling. So you see the power plug there? That powers the computer that the Teletype is connected to. So it's actually, when you plug in the Teletype, then the Raspberry Pi boots up, which is backwards way to do it. So I do want to shut down the Raspberry Pi and then unplug. And then leave it a couple of minutes and I'll be able to put some oil on it. So, how does the thing look from here? Yeah, move that a little bit. I think I can wind this back out. Regular office paper works fairly well, but of course it runs out very quickly. So, yeah. Let's see. I don't want to pull this too far. Other brand names and Teletype and Telephone. Yeah. But the original name for the company was the Morkram Kleinschmidt Company. And it goes way back to the turn of the, like to the end of the 19th century, when they made telegraph printers, which are, like the print piece of this is the same kind of thing as a telegraph printer. And then the keyboard piece of this, although it's now ASCII instead of the ITA2 code, the keyboard of this is, it's telegraph machinery. And yeah, Teletype Corporation then became part of AT&T. I don't know all the history of that, but I think there's a really interesting story there somewhere, that this is like a Bell Labs thing, and it's kind of interesting that Unix was at Bell Labs and Teletype was a part of the same organization. And then you've got like IBM and all of their stuff, and they were computing, and AT&T was communication, and AT&T and Teletype were all about communications, and Big Blue was all about computing machinery. And it's like IBM is still EBCDIC, or pieces of IBM are still EBCDIC, and it's like there's a really interesting piece of missing history in the 60s of how that stuff, like, was it really like a contentious battle of the giants? I don't know. So we'll see. So let me see. I got to do some real work here. I have a little oil pen, so I can drop bits of oil in this thing. And in particular, I'm going to put some oil droppers on the, just like one drop each, on the pins for my tape punch, because that's super important. So the lubrication instructions tell you basically, in 25 pages of instructions, oil everything that moves. Especially the felt pads. There's a bunch of like felt pads that are, let me see if I can show you some. Like there's a ton of little felt pads that are between rocking bits of the machinery. There's some down here in the tape punch I was just looking at. And unplug this thing again. Take you right down there. So in the bottom there, these things are a piece of metal and then a felt pad, and then a piece of metal and a felt pad. So the felt I'm just going to soak in oil, and there's a few hundred of those felt pads, a bunch of them down the back. I'm going to stay well away from the electronics because there's no need to oil any of that, but I am going to touch some of the machinery in here. So if I had some background music, I'd go play it. I don't have any background music. Power's off. Entertain yourselves. I'm just going to dig in and see what I can oil here. Some of these. I'm going to stay away from the rubber belt, but I'm going to oil everything that moves around it, and that includes some of these components and the ends of springs. Typically, if they're on a movie thing, then let's get some oil on the edge of them. Anything that rocks back and forward, I mean, they move faster than you can see, and so it's hard to, like, I've taken a couple slow-mo videos with the phone, and it's nice to see those, but you can't see it in real time as things happen, so you have to just, like, guesstimate, like, oh yeah, that moves, let's put some oil on it. Oh yeah, these, I think they move up and down, all these code bars. Let's put a little bit of oil on the ends of them where the springs hit. The print carriage here, there's a lot of rocking mechanism under that, so that all needs spilled oil all over it. But I don't want to get oil on my print tape, because it will splush all over the paper. But I do want to put oil on the things that move behind it. Right, this thing moves forwards. Oh, that's worth a show at some point. I can reach under there. You can see on this bit, there's like a, you can't really see it from this, there's a dash pot at the back, and when you do carriage return, it slaps into this pot, and there's a, like, the air is trapped, and that damps it at the end of the line. But there's quite a strong spring on it, so you let go and it goes whoop, and that's one of the things that STTY has to deal with. Is you're at 80 characters in, or 72, and you hit carriage return, it will take a quarter second before the carriage returns, and so STTY on a good version of Unix has delays that say after a carriage return, delay for n milliseconds, and similarly, after a line feed, you've got to have some delay as well. But BSD, Mac OS seems to have forgotten those options were necessary and taken them out. So again, my firmware on the Arduino kind of puts that stuff back in, but I think I can dispense with it at some point. If I'm always going to connect to a Raspberry Pi or a version of Unix that I control, then I don't need that stuff anymore. Alright, now that's got a rocking mechanism. I need lots and lots of oil in it. Most of the things I can see from the front I've touched already. Let's see. Is it possible that I can spin this around? No, it's a little too tight in here. Yes, it's possible. There we are. The rear view of the Teletype. I'm staying away from the high voltage stuff. I'm not going to oil the gears, the actual cams. I am going to find the oiling points for the bearings for the motor, if I can see where they go. Come on. There's an actual oil point for the bearing. There it is. Let's give that plenty of oil. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on each of these moving bars that does like a lift, the bar for the bell, the bar for line feed. They all need a little bit of oil to keep them moving. This thing here is the mechanism for lifting the line feed, I think. These are the cams that do the print. They are the print mechanism. And I'm going to maybe, I mean, they should maybe be grease on some of these, but I'm going to put oil because that's what I've got in my hand. plenty of oil on here. Plenty of oil on there, on those cam surfaces. Oil on the ends of the springs. There's lots more springs. Oil on the clutches in here, especially at the bearing points on the main thing. There's another cam that has a little catch. There's another like funny shaped thing. You know, when I look at this, it's ridiculously confusing. I mean, I'm sure for somebody who actually understands mechanical things that it is understandable, but for me it's very mysterious. How did they do that? And why? Alright, now what else am I looking for? Down here in the depths there's a couple more places. Down here, this is the auto answer. I don't think I really care about that. I'm never using the here is key. But any surface that touches another moving surface, that's where I got to get the oil in. And I was looking for more felt pads because, again, felt pads mean that there's a persistently rocking action going on. And I think I've got most of them. Let's get some more of these. And some down here, can't really see. Alright. So there we are. I'll do you another close-up tour of this, of the back of this machinery in a second, so that you can see how it all fits together. Let's put some more oil in the bearings for this motor, because the motor is on even when the system is not really doing anything, and so it's pretty important to have good lubrication on there. Yeah, there's a couple points on this that are worth seeing, even on the front. Okay, that'll do. Hope everybody's having fun. XOR hash, yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate people watching this. I'm glad you enjoy it because it's a lot of fun. I've been running for an hour, I guess, so I'm going to zoom in here. We'll put it back together, and then we'll. It's Twitch, so I'm supposed to play games or something. So maybe we'll finish with a game. So yeah, in back there's the motor, there's the main drive piece. There's a bunch of machinery in there, but most of the action is on this camshaft. And as it turns, then there's all these cams, and then this is the cams that drive the actual print mechanism, with solenoids that are driven electronically from this little piece of circuitry here. And then in front there's a magical thing that is the connection between the keyboard and the printer. And you see that kind of plate, there's a dark plate that looks like a letter Y. It's actually like an X plate. And that rocks backwards and forwards. It is the best sort, absolutely. That plate rocks backwards and forwards when you press a key, and then when this distributor cap has spun around and sent the serial bits down the wire, then it unlatches a thing that goes and latches the keyboard so that it can go on to the next character. So there's a tricky little latch thing there. Alright. Okay, I think I have like 5 minutes before my battery dies on the camera. So, I might even just like turn it all back on. Oh no, I don't want to turn it back on with the lid off for one reason, which is I've put a ton of oil in it now and it's going to fling. Guaranteed it's going to fling. So when the motor starts back up again, it's going to throw oil all across the wall. There, that looks normal again, doesn't it? That looks like a real thing. It's a teletype. Where did the paper go? But yeah, I think I can turn this thing back on. And it's a teletype, so we should play Zork, right? Isn't that the definitive character mode game for a Twitch session? So let's get it. Where's my little thing? Put that back together. So you can see I'm not really finishing up the job. I'll do that after we're done. And I put my paper in upside down. It's important to get the paper in the right way up, because this, as it goes further, it bends towards me. It's upside down. It should really bend the other way. But I'll fix that later. Let's turn it on. It sounds about the same. It has a bit more of a rocking sound, so I wonder. Anyway, I'm glad that I put a ton of oil on the machinery, because especially the motor. This motor is 50 years old. And it's like, if you have a bike that's 50 years old, you should oil it every journey. I haven't oiled this every journey because like it takes a bit of effort to get the lid off. So yeah, let's see. We can wind this in a little and see what's going on there. I'm going to need some help with this. Let's get my username correct. Some reason the first characters after it turns on, I think it's probably in my firmware that it just doesn't detect like the start bit properly or something. So it's really common that I type something and the first character comes out wrong. But so there's my password. Let's see if I can log in. And yay, okay. How is that an illegal option? Anyway, I've got score 0. You're going to have to help me out here. I don't know how to play Zork, other than you can move around. But it's funny. I never really played this game. I did spend a lot of time. Yeah, thank you. It is so fun. I spent a lot of time when I was little, playing Lambda Move, and do I open the mailbox? Let's open the mailbox. And Lambda Move is like incredibly immersive, multi-user thing, but it's more open-ended. There's no real goal of Lambda Move other than just to hang out. Take the leaflet. So, okay, what did it say? I put the paper in the wrong around, so it's all flopping down here. It says, "Welcome to Zork." That's cool. Zork is a game of adventure, danger, and low cunning. You'll explore some of the most amazing territory ever seen by mortals. No computer should be without one. Okay. Somebody help me out. Tell me what I should do. Should I go in a different direction here? Let's go south. You're facing the south side of a white house. So adjusting the camera, let's see if I can get it all on screen. My very primitive, like, camera hardware. Alright. You're facing the south side of a... There's no door here, and all the windows are boarded. This is where I need to go north and climb the tree. Thank you. Let's go north. Yeah, this is as far as I've ever got in this game, more or less. Yeah. How do you know what you can do? Well, it's, yeah, it's a great question. No. No, no. Come on, I want to go north. I can't get out of here. North, please. Oh no, I've really messed it up. Well. I want to go north and climb the tree. Sure enough. I don't know how to do that from here. I could go kind of west. I'm facing the south side of a white... I'm facing the south side. There's no door, and all the windows are boarded. So I have to go around it. I can't go through it. I do. I have to go... Let's try east then. Let's walk around the house. Somehow I managed to get through the house and out the other side without really knowing it. I'm behind the house. A path leads into the east, into the forest. I don't want to go there. In one corner there's a small window that's slightly ajar. Can I go north from here? Yes. I think I tried the Hitchhiker's Guide to Text Adventure, but I hadn't yet read the book, so I had no clue. Yeah. I'm facing the north side, yes. But this is how adventures are meant to be played. Slowly. The source for the original MIT version on a PDP-10, but nobody's to get it to compile. Alright. Yeah, and there's a big difference really between like running a vintage computer and running vintage terminal machinery, because like I love that you can connect this to anything. I can connect it to a completely modern machine and get useful things done with it for some value of useful. Because of the kind of thread of history going through it and the place in history that this thing encounters with being ASCII and so on, this still is a really practical piece. It's on the edge of practicality. So you can write code on it, you can edit things, you can run them on Unix, and mostly it kind of works, but there's that cognitive dissonance thing of like you're doing some modern, like I want to get this like deploying Lambda functions and all that kind of the cool modern stuff, serverless, but with a 110 baud interface. So I'm winding. There's a tree. Let's climb the tree. Yes. And there's something at the top of the tree. I don't know what there is. I'm about 10 feet up, above the ground. nestled among some large branches. Beside you, on the branch, is a small bird's nest. In the bird's nest is an egg. Apparently scavenged by a childless songbird. The egg is covered with gold inlay and ornamented in lapis lazuli and mother of pearl. Unlike a real egg, this one is hinged and closed with a delicate-looking clasp. It appears extremely fragile. Well, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take the egg. I'm sure it's going to be useful later on. Well, shall I go further up? I'm going to save my state, just in case I fall out of the tree. So if anybody hasn't had that experience already, of like staying up all night to work on like some game because you couldn't let go of it, that I think is the that is the Zork MIT experience in 1969. Oh no, Zork was written in the like early 70s. You had head back into the house and go into the basement, and there's all sorts of things to catch. This is running frots, yeah. And let me quit from that, and it gives me the rank of beginner. Y is affirmative. Alright, and yeah, there's as I remember, there's two versions of frots. There's a frots that uses curses and assumes that you can navigate the screen and clear it and move up and down and stuff, and then there's a defrots that doesn't. This is running defrots. So I'm going to stop here. I am getting to that point in the day when I think we've achieved something useful. Let me do a recap. What have we achieved? I played around with Getty and made it tell me to not automatically log in. That got as far as talking about some of the connection between the machine and the computer. Getty. Oh, and login is just a command, right? It just runs. And then we cleaned it and oiled it, and then we got Zork. Started playing this on a website. Yeah, right. You can play it on a website. Let me show you the place actually that I used to hang out much more. Oh no, it's called. I've renamed it just yesterday. I never played. I never played Zork much, but I did play Lambda-Mu, and this is Lambda-Mu. It's still running. It's on a server. So Lambda-Mu's history is it was written by what's his name? Pavel Curtis, who worked at Park, I think, at Zero, and maybe in 1990 or something. I mean, that kind of era, a bit later than the Zork days. And Lambda-Mu is like crazy extensible, and there's 1 million people logged in. And yeah, you saying you tried look at myself, and one of the things about Lambda-Mu is, hey, I've got a mail message. What? Somebody's sending me mail on Lambda Moo. And there's all sorts of mailing lists, and there's a whole social kind of environment, and elections for the ARB, and there's like a million things. And I don't log in here very often, but there's still people that hang out here, and all of the places that people built going back to the early 90s are still here. And so that's like 1990 is like nearly 30 years ago. And it's actually been running ever since. It's not like a program that you just run on your machine. It's like you're connecting to this real system that's been going since forever. And I last connected last year, several months ago from Comcast, and that's my username. And so actually, my real name is my real name here. Oh, my other one of my other morphs is called TTY, and then you can. Guest is looking at me. Hey Guest, is that one of you people? So, I'm in character. Comprehensively in character for behaving like a teletype. And guest is logged off or is not here, or anyway. So yeah, Lambda Moo is amazing. Guest waves from the coat closet. I don't know how to clear a line on here, but I can go wave to the guest, say hi. I don't know how to wave long distance. I've completely forgotten how to use the verbs. And there's a wonderful verb system. I think I can say join the guest. Yes, here I am. I'm in the cloak closet. And guest is probably running a super modern graphical high-speed interface and will run rings around me here. Puts me at a disadvantage socially to have such a primitive interface. I'm lacking in the uppercase, lowercase department, and I'm in the coat closet. Very crowded. You keep bumping into things. But one thing you've discovered in fumbling around is there's a metal doorknob, and next to it there's a spring lever that's labeled quiet. And so now I can now say hi. Or at least, yeah, I could if I remember how to. So yeah, I think it's time. This has been amazing fun, as always. Spending a Saturday afternoon hanging out on the Teletype. Oh no, I'm not even going to shut down now. Let's look at the to-do list. Hardware lid off, did that. Getty and the login, yeah, did that. It's an ASCII issue, we didn't do that. But, you know, it's just basically the login message. It's just a text file. There's a couple links for the show notes. Let's see if I can put those in chat. Make Getty non-automatic. Yep. Dig into term iOS and STTY. Yeah, we did a little bit of that. Or at least STTY. And term iOS is just the vast interface. And then you get into like ioctl and all of the vastness of like how to set these terminal settings into the kernel. And it gets very deep and mysterious. And so anyway, links for further reading in the chat if you ever want them. If you want to go read code. Anyway, that's enough of the to-do list. I'm gonna move from 1 to 10 to the end of the line. And next up we're on the Twitch bot. So next time we'll come back to the Twitch bot, and it should already do things like, say, pling bell. Yes? No? It's not running. It should be able to do things like pling bell. But I want to have it do more things than that and be like a smart Twitch bot. So let's try this one. Pling. Yay. I tried to do that last time on the last session and it didn't work. And it turns out the reason it didn't work is because Python buffers standard error. Which is like stupid, but there you go, it's Python. So, I am done. That'll do for next time. For now, let's shut down. See you all in a couple days, probably Wednesday, midweek. We'll do another session. As always, this has been fantastic. I'm having so much fun. Talk to me on Twitter. See you all soon. Take care, everyone.